Good morning. Now, is that too much? Am I overwhelming you? Dennis, do you want me to yell? Oh, we can do the teacher voice thing, right? Susan's used to that?
Yes.
Susan, 5th grade student, Olathe.
Oh.
Just a few years ago.
1 or 2.
And of course, Matt was Montrose High School a few years ago, too. It's interesting for Kathy Heavers and I to see past students. You may sit wherever you want to be, sir.
I'd like to sit in the back. She needs to keep the volume up. I got new hearing aids a year and a half ago, and they didn't work as well as they should, and then they threw my hearing aid doctor in jail. So, we either need to get him out, or you people need to speak up. That's a true story. Yeah.
Same here.
So thank you for coming this morning to talking about housing. Of course, with me being on city council, housing and unhoused and all of that is something that we hear all the time and we work on. Our new lodging tax is designed to help with affordable housing. All of those many things, we're always talking about affordable housing. And so, since obviously I know these two, I asked them to come this morning and talk about a range of housing and what we have going. Now Susan's going to speak, and then we're going to maybe let Matt, but Matt likes to have questions, so be thinking of really difficult questions you want to ask him. And when we get to that type of the program, because of our hearing situations with some people, as well as because of the video, you need to have a mic. So when it comes to question time, raise your hand, I'll bring you a mic, you can ask your questions, and then we'll continue from there. Okay? Any questions? Oh, a lot of you are new faces I haven't seen before. If you haven't been to forum before, we send out an email every Saturday morning telling you what our program is going to be. Then you can either choose to come or not come. That's your choice. Let us know if you want one of those cards. There are 4 of us that facilitate this. There we go. Phoebe Benziger, Kathy Heavers, Barbara Bynum, and myself. So let one of us know and we'll give you one of the cards. Other than that, let's go with Susan Barrientos and the Montrose County Housing Authority. Yes, you have to pick up your own mic.
Sorry, I thought you were going to give me yours.
No, I'm keeping mine.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I'm Susan Barrientos with Montrose County Housing Authority, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of information about what we do for low-income families. The Housing Authority was organized in 1980 to help low-income families pay their rent, basically. We do this through several programs. The Section 8 HUD program. We have some farm labor housing that we own and manage that is subsidized, multifamily housing, and elderly and disabled families. Elderly and disabled housing. So let's start with our Housing Choice Voucher Program. This provides rental assistance for households struggling to make ends meet by helping to pay their rent. They pay a portion and the HUD voucher pays a portion. This voucher moves with the tenant from house to house. We call it a sticky voucher, so it sticks with the tenant. If they come to us and they rent a house here in Montrose, typically the time period is a year. At the end of that year, they can choose to move to another house in Montrose or to anywhere in the United States or our territories that has a housing authority that administers the HUD vouchers. So they could move to, I was just at a conference with the Housing Authority staff from Puerto Rico. So they could port out to Puerto Rico if that's what they chose to do. The participants pay 30 to 40% of their income toward rent, and then the HUD voucher pays the rest. And you'll hear this 30% is kind of the hot spot for all of our programs. The voucher funding, we receive voucher funding from 2 sources. The first source is HUD. They're struggling a bit, as I'm sure you've all heard. So I don't believe we're going to get a raise this year in funding. They give us a tiny bit of a raise every year. This year, we are either going to get 0 raise or a bit of a decline. The other funding source is the Colorado Department of Local Affairs Division of Housing, and so we manage both federal vouchers and state vouchers. So our federal vouchers, we're allotted 182 federal vouchers, and we can spend about $90,000 a month on those. We are allotted, and that just changed from 14 to 19. We received an additional 5 BASH vouchers last year. Currently, 175 regular vouchers are being used, and all 19 of our BASH vouchers are being used. We were awarded the first vouchers, 14 of them, in 2014. And then again, we received another 5 late. Actually, I guess it's been longer than I thought, late in 23. So we currently have 19 veterans housed. So what happened was the Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Program is sponsored by HUD and the VA. And they give these veterans, homeless veterans, a case manager that helps them, much like you were here a couple weeks ago, those of you that were here and listened to Carlton talk about CASA, where they have the case managers that help these folks fill out their paperwork, and they get them to the clinical services at the VA, so that these homeless veterans can lead healthy, productive lives in our community. The Colorado Division of Housing, they have many different types of vouchers. They have supportive housing vouchers. They used to have a program that did home ownership. They have stopped that, but we do still have 2 of those on our program. We currently administer 84 vouchers for the Colorado Division of Housing. Farm labor housing, because Montrose is an agricultural community. The USDA Rural Development in 1993, we built 12 duplexes, so a total of 24 3- and 4-bedroom units for families. Were built on scattered sites throughout Olathe. This one I didn't get updated for my income limits. I put the income limits in here. I was going to for a 4-person and 5-person. These folks are people that live here year-round with families that go to the Olathe schools. So they are definitely part of our community. About 65% of the household income must come from farm labor. And again, these participants also pay about 30% of their income toward rent, and then USDA Rural Development subsidizes the rest. These are subsidized through USDA Rural Development, as I said, and with these, the subsidy stays with the unit. So unlike the sticky vouchers, where the tenants can take them and go somewhere else, these stay at the unit. When the tenant moves out, the subsidy stays for the next family. Then we have our multifamily Barber Court apartments. Those are 1-bedroom apartments here in Montrose. They're 24 1-bedrooms. Again, my income limits didn't save because these are 1-bedroom. 1 or 2 persons is about the maximum for those. 21 of these 24 are subsidized by rural development. And again, the subsidy stays with the unit. And these participants also pay 30% of their income toward rent. So the 3 units that are not subsidized by rural development sets that market rate. Those of you out there that are landlords or have tried to rent a place, you know that $640 for a 1-bedroom is still very, very low. However, I think it was a couple of years ago that we had one of these available, and we went through our wait list. I think my property manager there, Diane Pacheco, went through our wait list and passed up, I think, 15 people before she found an applicant that could afford the $640 a month. So we offer those, the 3 that are not subsidized at $640 a month, and that's our deal with rural development. Olathe Meadows, these are elderly disabled housing. These are for extremely low income individuals. Oh, and this one saved actually my income limits. So this is an elderly housing project. This was what started the Housing Authority in Olathe. County Commissioner way back, Neil Reams, and one of my predecessors before Kathy's husband Tim was Hap Jensen. So Neil Reams, Hap Jensen, and John Harold was quite involved as well. I think he was on the board. They decided that there was a great need for low-income elderly housing in Olathe. So they built these 24 units, 1 bedroom. They have to be 62 and older, or 55 and older and disabled. These apartments are across from the Olathe Community Center where they serve lunch 3 days a week. Some of our residents participate, some don't. And this is extremely low. So the income limits for these folks are a little over $17,000 for 1 person and about $19,500 for a 2-person household. These apartments are subsidized by HUD through CHAFA, which is the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. And just like the other units, the subsidy with these stays with the unit. So if the tenant moves out, the subsidy stays for the next tenant. And again, these participants pay approximately 30% of their income toward rent. Just to put this in perspective, these folks can also declare medical expenses as a deduction toward what they pay in rent. We had a tenant for quite a long time who was disabled who paid $52 a month, and that was his rent, and HUD paid the rest. So this is what we paid last month. We had federal vouchers of 176 federal vouchers, about $117,000. We've had some HUD held reserves. In the past, if we didn't spend our money, it just kind of built up. And HUD has taken that back, but said as you spend a little more than your normal budget, we'll give you that money back. So I think in the beginning I told you we could spend about $98,000, and we are working on spending our HUD held reserves before they decide to give them away. So we've spent $117,000 on those, on our VASH vouchers. We had 19 of those. We helped $11,000 worth of rent. Our state vouchers, we have 52 for just under $30,000. The home ownership program, I told you we had a couple of those. We helped those folks pay their mortgage for $1,400. Our CASA project vouchers, we had 15, and I think maybe that number is a little bit low. I know, the number that the girls gave me was we paid about $25,000 out in rent. In Barber Court, again, the 21 that are subsidized, we helped them with $11,000 worth of rent. Our farm labor duplexes, we're struggling a little bit to keep these farm labor duplexes full, so we only had 22 available or in use for $7,600. And our Olathe Meadows, all 24 of those are being rented, and we helped them with just under $7,000. So we helped 333 families with $211,000 worth of rent. So that annual amount is about $2.5 million. These are other low-income housing choices. Up here at the top, you see multifamily. That's kind of a housing word for any age. The Sunshine Peaks apartment, the Cottonwood apartments, the Montrose apartments, Montrose family. You can see the ones I told you about that we own. At the top, Barber Court. The new residences at Dry Cedar Creek, Pinion Apartments, and these 30 in Ridgeway at Space to Create. Again, then our farm labor housing. Then these are the elderly housing. Here's our Olathe Meadows. And VOA used to have multifamily. They used to have 30 units that were multifamily. They are in the process of converting those. They got tax credits to convert the 30 units to elderly. And then the new building that you see being built across from the pavilion, that will be 22 new units. So those came down from 30 multifamily to 52 elderly units that will be available, hopefully by the end of the summer. And so now, what are the new projects that we're involved in, and how do we help with this? So those of you that came and listened to Carlton's talk a couple weeks ago about the village on San Juan, these are 30 one-bedroom, and again, we talked about supportive housing. Casa and Hilltop both provide case managers to help these young people and homeless elderly to with whatever they need. Whether I heard one of the ladies say she was going to help one of her elderly people learn to ride the bus so they could get to Walmart to buy groceries. Excuse me. Then there are 8 units that are at 80% AMI. Those are 1 and 2 bedrooms, Carlton? And are those all rented?
Yeah, and it's 12.
12 of those, and they are all rented. And then they've got 3 bridge housing units that they're using for a multitude of things. Then we have, again, the residences at Dry Cedar Creek. These are ones just to the directionally challenged east of the rec center. 60 multifamily units, and as far as I know, those are all full. And those were tax credit units. Sunshine Peaks Apartments. These were 96 units of tax credits. The tax credits run out after 15 years, and then they're like, yeah, now what do we do with them? So the first phase was built in 2006, that the tax credits were ending, and so we took over the ownership just at the end of last year of the first 48, phase 1, 48 units, and over the next year or 2 years, we will take over the ownership of phase 2, which will be 43 units. We received funding through the city of Montrose we received CDBG funding and a loan from New Vista Credit Union to purchase these, as well as to do some rehab, things like the sidewalk here. You can see some of the stuff isn't ADA compliant. The mailboxes are not ADA compliant. Those will have to be fixed. The 3 ADA units in this phase need a bit of remodel repair. So we will be doing that this summer. And then we talked about VOA Rendezvous, and that's the 52 units, 30 units that they're remodeling, and then the 22, and these are the 22 new units that I talked about being built across from the pavilion. We will assist, let's go back here. Where did San Juan? We administer all 30 of these supportive housing vouchers. That's how we are involved in that. The 15, or the 12 affordable units, Carlton deals with those on his own. The 3 bridge units, CASA deals with those. But we administer the supportive housing vouchers. Residents at Dry Cedar Creek, we also have, probably 8 or 10 of our voucher holders in this complex. We have probably, I would guess 30 voucher holders at Sunshine Peaks. VOA, we have voucher holders, the folks that, so when they let's see, before they remodeled the 30 units, the folks that no longer qualified to live there because they changed it from multifamily to elderly. So the folks that no longer qualified to live there, VOA brought in a person that did nothing but help them find a new place to live, and they helped them move. And so the about 10 that remained, they are remodeling and then moving them, and then remodeling the other units. And then these 22 new units, we will supply something we've never done before, 8 project-based vouchers, which are sort of like the ones that we already own and manage, but these we'll have to convert our sticky vouchers to be project-based vouchers, and 8 of those will stay right here permanently. Real America, that built Residences at Dry Cedar Creek, they were awarded $8 million in Prop 123 funds and are working to build another 60 units of workforce housing. So typically the tax credits are, a few of them are 60%, but typically 50% or below area median income are what the folks have to make. These folks will be entered in at 80 to 100% of area median income. So more like entry-level teachers, people working at the restaurant, serving you at the restaurant, those kinds of things. And I think that's all I've got. I will wait until Matt's done and then we'll take questions together.
Susan has agreed to wait and take questions later, so if you'll wait for your questions. And now we're gonna let Matt talk about whatever Matt wants to talk about.
Well, thank you. By the way, she told me to sit down hundreds of times in high school, so I guess she's still in her blood. Hey, if you can hear me. So I come at the entry-level housing or the more affordable housing product from the private sector model. This was very interesting what Susan just went over. I think we all have an awareness of what the Housing Authority does, but I didn't realize that it was that broad. But what we offer here in Montrose is an opportunity for entry-level housing, starting at the most affordable, being in our manufactured home communities. We've got the Cimarron Creek project, River Meadows project, and Hidden Lake project. Those are all what are called land lease communities. Every home in those communities is owned by the occupant. There are no rental homes. I don't rent any homes. I don't think I own a single rental. But I own and manage the underlying land, which is where you get into the, quote, trailer park. Could you play that video, please? This is Cimarron Creek. This will give you an idea of what we're up to. So that project, Cimarron Creek, is out on 6530 Road. When I say we, my wife and I, we acquired that ground in 1999 and started the project immediately. And now we have about 240 occupied homes in there and probably a dozen or so model homes that are ready to purchase and move into today. The prices on those model homes, and they range from single wide homes to really nice double wides. The entry level ones that are about $115,000, fully financed, we have a 6% interest rate product that we're using right now. But that home fully financed plus the lot rent is about $1,600 a month. That gets you 1,100 square feet of home. Now that's not affordable for the people that Susan is trying to help. But when you look at renting a single family home in Montrose for $2,000 a month or renting a single-wide manufactured home in Ironstone Village for $1,500 a month plus utilities were very, very affordable at the entry level. But we don't focus on affordability, we focus on lifestyle. And I know that sounds odd because of the pricing involved, but when you move into any one of our manufactured home communities, what we offer is safety and neighborhood and quietness. If you drive through those, how many people, just out of curiosity, are familiar with Cimarron Creek, the one we just had? Okay, people drive in there and they don't really know what it is because it doesn't really look like a trailer park, but we market it like a trailer park and we have the homes for sale and all that. But we have people relocate in there, and not just one person. We have probably 20 of the 200 plus homes that are occupied by people that have downsized from, say, Cobble Creek or another more expensive, bigger single-family opportunity, and come in there because of the quality of life. And I have to emphasize the quality of life in those communities. All those cul-de-sacs, all those streets, those people look out for each other. When somebody leaves for an extended period of time, people are coming into the office asking where that resident is. There's all this community concern. That wasn't a goal originally, but it's kind of morphed into that because the tenant profile in those communities is such that they really work well. So that's our entry-level product. Then from there, we move up to a community called Cedarview. Cedarview is over by the old Gibson's or Gold's Gym off of Hillcrest. And that's a subdivision in that they're manufactured homes, but we sell the lots with the homes. The problem with that project, it's a great project, but my entry-level home in there isn't a lot different than a single-family home that they build, say, in Bear Creek. And Bear Creek is another one of our projects that's an entry-level project. 800 homes, that's about 600 homes built out. And then up from there, so we start at the bottom, and then we work our way clear up to, the top of the market. But what I was hoping when Mrs. Severs asked me to come in and talk from the private sector model of entry-level housing versus the subsidized housing, what I was hoping is to answer any questions people had and kind of introduce our product, because it seems like being manufactured housing will get stigmatized with all of the negativity and bad stuff that goes on in trailer parks, but I have to emphasize that there's every kind of trailer park from shoddy to high-end, just like there's every kind of apartment from shoddy to high-end and every kind of single-family housing. So that's really all I have from a presentation standpoint, but I'd sure be willing to answer any questions, and of course Susan's here to field questions on their behalf.
Remember, he wants difficult questions.
Oh yeah, I don't want to talk about paint and landscaping. We want to talk about why our product even should compete.
And even though I'm the one who asked him to be here today, and I'm not Mrs. Hebers. I'm
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm
so sorry.
He was such a pain in the rear when he was in high school.
All right, no questions, thank you.
No, I have one. And he wasn't a pain in high school. I can vouch for that.
That's because I was in Votech welding all the time.
Matt, of all of your developments, which seems to be the most popular and easy to sell? Like, I was surprised the area across from Gold's Gym seemed to just fill out immediately. Is it true that that was more desirable in terms of sales, or how are you finding the others are going?
When we have a customer come into Cedarview, because it's a more expensive presentation, the $400,000 manufactured home on the lot, we always introduce them to Cimarron Creek. And when you show them the feature benefits of Cimarron Creek and the property management that's there, because all the streets in Cimarron Creek, the residents have access to the community center and the dog parks and all that, and the manicured lawns and all the things that go on. Normally, those people will go to Cimarron Creek. So you have people that are hard set on ownership of both the house and the lot, and then you have people that are compatible with Cimarron Creek. So which one is easier, I don't know. Number-wise, we sell a lot more houses in Cimarron Creek than we do in Cedarview.
I'm coming in. I'm behind you, sir.
My questions are for Susan,
Yeah.
and they're mostly detail kind of questions.
Okay, well, if I can't answer them, I will get your number and do some research and get back to you.
No, I think
Go
you may
ahead.
be able to.
Okay.
You mentioned holding vouchers. These are how many vouchers we hold. How many actual vouchers have you issued in 2024?
So that was the number, I'm not sure I can get back to it.
Oh, you can, but you'll need my help.
HUD vouchers. And if
Yeah.
you could distinguish between HUD
So
and
we are
Colorado.
allowed the 182. Right now, we have 178 of them issued. Is that what you mean?
Did you issue all of those this year?
Oh, heavens, no. We have folks that have had a voucher since, they're lifetime vouchers.
That's what I'm asking. How many did you actually issue this year?
If I were guessing, I would say 15. Ballpark, 15. I do not know that. I can go back and get you that number.
That's great. That's
However, if our funds are cut and we are needing to convert 8 of our vouchers to the promised project-based vouchers,
Yeah.
we are not expecting to issue any vouchers this year.
Okay.
We have 4 that we issued at the end of the year that are still out looking, and they still have the chance to lease up. But we don't expect to, other than the 8 project-based vouchers, with the funding cuts, we don't expect to lease any this year.
Thank you. Second question.
Sure.
You mentioned a waiting list.
Yes.
How long is that waiting list?
It's hard to put a time frame on it. The waiting list, we opened the wait list for about 9 months, and we deemed it to be 2 years long. That was probably a year or so ago. Our attrition rate has been about 35 people. So the 71 is still about 2 years out, except that we don't expect to issue any this year.
So what I hear you saying is it takes 2 years once you get on the waiting list to probably get a place.
To get to the
A
top,
voucher, yeah.
to get a voucher.
And how many people are on that waiting list?
71 at this point.
Thank you. I appreciate
Sure.
that.
Thank you.
Okay, difficult question.
Morning, I have 2 questions, one for Matt and one for you, Susan.
I'll start.
Susan, thanks for all this info you've given us. Migrant housing for agricultural workers, which starts in 2 months' time. Is John Harold the only person who's handling that with Tuxedo Corn, or do you get involved?
We do not. We are now allowed to, they told us with our farm labor duplexes, we can take the migrant, Diane, you have to tell me, is it the A2?
H2A.
The H2A migrant workers. The problem with that is that they come, typically, I'm being very general here, typically those are men who come and work for the season and then go right back home. Excuse me. Our farm labor duplexes are set up for families. Rural development requires that we get a 1-year lease. So those are not the H2A.
H2A.
The H2A folks are typically not the ones that want to rent through us. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, so basically it's John Harold, right?
There is another farmer that contacted Diane Pacheco, my property manager, that he wanted to do some as well. So I think that if I were a farmer and trying to do it, I would go to John Harold to see what he's already done. But there may be a few others out there. I've heard other names, like maybe Alberg. I've heard that are maybe working with John Harold or on their own to house those folks.
Because I think he does for 180 people, thank you.
Yeah.
Matt,
You're up.
I hope this isn't too controversial, but a couple of years ago, you had a pretty major project in the works for adjacent to Cobble Creek, and they did put in the traffic light. Are you able to give us an update on where you are with that?
I can update you from the Cobble Creek's residents' perspective, or I can update you from the actual project. So that was a HUD project. The first phase was 160 units, and it's what's called market rate. So those weren't subsidized units. We were just using HUD as a financing source on that. When interest rates did what they did, we had to put that project on the shelf. But it's the first 160 unit building is planned, and as soon as interest rates come back home, we'll build it. And it's very high end. There's 5 acres of hardscaping in the first phase alone of parks and different amenities for that apartment project. It's basically a play on the value transfer of Cobble Creek. You know, my wife and I live, I don't even know how far, half a mile from Cobble Creek. We were there when it was Collins Farms. We were there when they built it, blah, blah, blah. But it's a nice project, and we have planned that apartment project to be complementary, and it is in the works, but I can't give you an update on when we'll start. Now, the Cobble Creek side of it, pink stucco, people coming over and stealing meat off their barbecue grills, but that's not gonna happen.
So I actually have a question for both of you. Matt, I think you're expanding Cimarron Creek. Is there, could you give us a rough estimate of how many more units you think you can fit in there?
When we went through planning on Cimarron Creek back in '99, it's planned for 427 manufactured housing units. And as our people have time and we have resources, we're constantly expanding. So in the video, you saw those outbounds where the cul-de-sacs are cut in and whatnot. We have 170 units left to build of the 427, and as the market demands, we'll build those.
Great, thank you. And Susan, you mentioned, you know, that the subsidy or vouchers require the tenant to pay 30% of the rent, and then the voucher covers the rest. Excuse me. Could you just elaborate on the fact that if you're using a voucher, that there's a cap on what the owner can demand for rent?
You've been listening in those board meetings, haven't you, Don Perry?
Oh, by the way, both of you, thank you for what you're doing for our community and housing the people in our community. Very much appreciated.
So Don is one of my board members, and we've discussed this. So basically, the 30 to 40% of their income is what they have to pay at inception. That's what they do to qualify. That's what they have to be able to pay to qualify and get into the unit and get our voucher. Now, let's say they go along in year 3 or 4, they're making lots more money. So what happens then is that the HUD voucher pays less and they pay more. We don't necessarily say, okay, no, now you've made too much income, you're out. What happens is it gets to a point, though, that the tenant pays all of their rent and they have zero HAP or zero housing assistance payment. And once they are on zero HAP for 6 months, then we tell them, congratulations, you have graduated out, and they give up their voucher, and that's how then we are able to issue it to the next family on the wait list. Good question, thank you. And while we're on that, Carlton, if you think of something that you'd like to add or a question about the village that we can clarify, please do.
I have 2 questions, one for each of you. Matt, I believe you just acquired what used to be Pioneer Ranch on Ogden. So you have that, and you have the additional lots at Cimarron Creek, and you have the area by Cobble. What's your priority in terms of developing all of those? And did you have anything in mind for the Ogden property? So I'll leave that one before I ask Susan.
So the Ogden property that we refer to as Leonard Farm, or like you said, Pioneer Ranch, you know, life is a chess game, and that's a piece to the chess game that we needed to acquire for maintaining competitiveness in the Montrose housing market. Our immediate goals are to start some development off of Otter Road a year from now. And then the Ogden Road stuff, I don't know when that will season. But we're there to meet the market. If we see market tomorrow that we can exploit on that property, we'll build it. But yeah, all told, in the city of Montrose alone, we have over 5,000 units of density on our properties. So we are not only positioned on the 5 corners of the 4-corner Montrose, you know, Pioneer Ranch, we've got Woods Crossing, which has a density of 1,000. We've got Cimarron, we've got Hidden Lake, which is in the county. River Meadows is finished, but Hidden Lake is in the county. We've got the density over by Cobble Creek, the completion of Waterfall Canyon, the completion of Bear Creek, I don't know, Cedar View. So we've got all those little parts and pieces, but they're just strategic holdings. See, I have to work out of town. You don't work in Montrose and grow the way we grow. So I bring money home every month and pay Brad Hughes' tax. Do you know what it costs? You know, seriously. Signing checks yesterday morning, Rosemary Murphy, she's the collector for Brad Hughes. $1,300 per developed vacant lot is what the property taxes are. We've got hundreds of those in inventory. It's like, and you realize that at the end of the day, I don't pay those. The guy building the house that's going to occupy that house pays those property taxes. It's very frustrating when we start talking about why is housing so expensive? Why can't people find an affordable solution? In the last year, the price of concrete, the price of base materials being sand and gravel and asphalt and concrete, and all due respect to the city, because it was mandated by the state, the new energy code, which predicates certain minimum energy requirements in site-built houses as well as radon testing. It all sounds good, but that's added over $20,000 to the price of a basic new home, the energy code modification, and base materials have added 10. So for the exact product today, it's $30,000 more than it was a year ago simply because of those mandates. So and then, you know, the city goes and they want to collect lodging tax. I get it. Everybody needs money to grease the skids. I need money. City needs money. County needs money. State needs money. Elon Musk is the only guy that doesn't need money, thank God. But as things escalate, I'll give you a statistic and then I'll shut up. In 2002, Bloomberg did a study, an index for inflation. I'm sorry, in 2022, Bloomberg did a study. And the median home price in the United States was $407,000. You go back 20 years to 2002, an index for inflation, the median home price in the United States was $207,000. The median home price in this country, the way it feels in your pocketbook, has doubled in 20 years. Not because of inflation, but just the actual adjusted for inflation cost of housing, and it's because of all of the million programs that we have to adhere to, and the different building codes and the different things that are required. And I'll just throw this out there. You guys have probably read about me in the paper with gravel pits. We try to produce our own base materials on location as a cost-saving measure when we build the projects, and the city's very cooperative with letting us do that. But because there's a demand, a scarcity for gravel for the open market in Montrose, we've seen concrete prices go up $70 basically in a year. And that's because of lack of competition in the gravel business. So it all works together, and it's getting more frustrating by the day because it's not getting any easier.
My second question, thank you, is for Susan. You talked about tax credit housing, and most of the figures you've thrown out are 30% area median income. But would you explain how tax credit works and which units are tax credit? Sunshine Peaks is, I think, the area behind the rec center. those are, because that's not just 30%, right?
Barbara, can you bring up my, I'm not sure what I've done, but, yeah, they know, I'm not known for my tech skills, let's just lay that out. So let me first lay, so to build a subsidized, when they built our Latham Meadows apartments, they got, private activity bonds that paid for some of it, they got a loan that paid for some of it, and they built them, and then they went into a contract with HUD that said, we'll rent these for this amount if our tenants can pay 30% and HUD, you have a fund that you just pay the rest.
Susan, which slide do you want?
I want that one, thank you very much. So that's how subsidized housing had worked for a long time. Then they brought out and someone said, oh, this is the new, goodest, bestest thing, and that's tax credits. So what happens, let's say I want to build a building, and so I go get, let's say the building's going to cost $7 million, and I want $1 million in profit to pay my people, to pay me, whatever. So we've got $8 million. So I can go out there and I can get tax credits. Let's say I get $5 million in tax credits. CHAPA gives me those tax credits and I find someone to sell them to. Pampers, Google, Boston Financial. All of those people are wanting to buy tax credits. So I sell them. They're running about dollar for dollar. Things have, in the past it was you could get $1.10 for every dollar you had, or only 80 cents. So they kind of fluctuate a little, but let's just, for the sake of this, say I found Google and Google said, yes, I will give you $5 million. So now I have an $8 million project, that $5 million of it is already, I've got the money. Then I get, let's say, a $2 million loan. And then I apply for, the city's been really good, so let's see if they can get me CDBG funds for $1 million. Okay, so I've got $6 million in grants or free money, I'll say, and now I have to get a loan for $2 million. So then what CDBG, what the IRS, who administers the tax credits, and CHAPA, what they all say then is we're not going to do the same thing as subsidized, because that would just be way too easy. But we're going to say, instead of the tenant paying 30% and someone subsidizing, you've already got all your money. We gave you $5 million and CDBG gave you $1 million. You've got all your funding already. So in return, you will rent these. You will rent, let's say, 10 of your units to people who make 30% of area median income. And those one bedrooms can go for $700 a month. You can rent 10 of your units to people that make 40%, and those you can rent for $800 a month, and so on. And so that's how then I make my rents. They're not anywhere near market rate, but I only have a $2 million loan on an $8 million project. So that's how those pencil out.
And which units are?
So the Sunshine Peaks apartment are tax credits. Diane helped me if residences at Dry Cedar Creek are tax credits. Ridgeway Space to Create are tax credits. Woodgate Trails are tax credits. And VOA Rendezvous are tax credits. And these, all of these tax credits, you can also use our Voucher Act. So if you are at 40% area median income and they're saying, yes, we have a unit at $800 a month, and you have one of our vouchers, then again, you can pay 30% of your income toward this $800, and HUD voucher will pay the rest. On that same note, Matt's talking about his many of his people own their trailers. All of his people own their trailers, and many of them then pay lot rent. Our vouchers are also able to be used for lot rent.
Okay, Becky.
Matt, I was just thinking that it was worth noting that all of your trailers or your Cimarron Creek and all that are very nice, that you do not sell those to investors for them to rent those properties out for high rents or whatever, correct? Those are all sold properties.
That's correct. Every home is occupied by the home's owner, and we don't have any partners. All the underlying land, all that is my wife and I, so it's all local. And that's rule number 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the manufactured housing business in maintaining quality, is you make sure that the units are occupied by their owners. They have pride of ownership, and there's also different management reasons for doing that.
That's the difference in the cost for the.
Hey, right here. Sir.
Good morning, Matt.
Right?
I live in Cimarron Creek, and in 2023, we had a lease increase of 9%. In 2024, we had a lease increase of 9%. And for this present year, we had a rent increase of 5%. There are a lot of folks that live in Cimarron Creek that had no idea that the expense was going to be as large as it is. Some of us carry mortgages, some don't. And I guess the unknown is a very scary thing. And in talking with people that have moved in within the last few years, I think the question came forward, what can we expect for lease increases? And when I first moved here, it might be $10 a month, maybe even 15. So in the course of the last 7 years, this has increased over $300 for lease. And I think people need to be made aware of that, because a lot of us have looked at this situation as this is our last days. This is where we want to be. But it still comes down to affordability for us. And the unknown is very scary to us, especially on fixed incomes, being senior citizens and possibly having to look to go back into the working aspect of income in the community. I wondered what you might be able to add to that.
So our rent increases are with or slightly below inflation, actual inflation that you feel every day. And we had to increase those rents to maintain the quality that we have. Sounds really generic, but those rents are 100% the revenue stream that we use to maintain those communities. Our new home sales, our costs are below. People look at our new homes and they say, why is that Clayton 16 by 80 sitting there, $110,000 set up, and we go down to the Clayton lot in Grand Junction and the same home is 170? I sell those homes as tight to the bone, or even subsidize the sale of those homes, because we're after good tenants that fit our resident profile, that fit into the community. So if we were making money anywhere else, it wouldn't all have to be so lockstep with inflation. But the reason that the rents have gone up over the last 4 years, let's say, is directly related to inflationary pressures that we have felt. Moving forward, it'll be the same. And I don't have a crystal ball what they will be. Like you said, they were 9% for a couple of years, and then we relaxed them to 5%, and I don't know what they'll be the upcoming year. But they will basically mimic inflation. And I apologize for that. My wife and I agonize over that. We know that there are people that it's a hardship. I understand that.
Then why, after the first year that I lived there, my lot rent increased by 16.2%? Your improvements didn't come to that amount.
Ma'am, I can't answer that. I would be more than happy to talk to you or have Robin talk to you. Robin's been with me 18 years. We're all sensitive to this. I don't know, maybe you were caught in some kind of lagging period or something. I have no idea.
That was 21. I moved there in 21 and 22. it went up 16.2%.
Well, that was right in the, you know, storm.
Okay.
I don't have an
Any more-
excuse.
Any more questions? No,
Call me on
don't
my
do
cell phone,
comments,
please.
we do questions. No questions? Come on. Who had the most oh, Phoebe. And this will be the last question.
So the lots you have in Cimarron Creek, they can buy the lot, they can buy the building, but they can't buy the lot, correct?
That's correct.
So then can they take their home off of that lot and move it up to one of your lots up by Gold's Creek, and so they can own the lot and the house?
Yes, ma'am.
And so are they penalized for taking their home off of their lot?
Not by us. Phoebe, how expensive do you think it is to bring in a new home and set it up on a lot in Cimarron Creek? To put the blocks under it, to tie the plumbing, the electrical, to build the awning?
Well, I'm sure it's very hard.
Well, take a guess at the number.
I'm not doing that.
30 grand.
Okay.
Plus the building permit is 7 grand. Now you go and move it over to Cedarview, you buy the lot, and it would be at least that $30,000 or $37,000 to move it. So it's not economically, they're normally sold in place. And because of the quality of the community, they can be sold in place for somewhere, you know, near or more than what you paid for the home.
Yeah, I just know that I've had people that it's hard to sell their house there because they just own the house and not the land. They'd like to own both and have have some skin in the game other than their house. And that's just a comment, not a question.
I get it, but look at the management I
No
provide.
comments. So this is a lot different than when my husband and I lived in a single wide trailer and went to school in Gunnison. You know, the gravel lot, nothing for aesthetics, just our trailer sitting on gravel. But 40 below zero, it was a little difficult a few times. And things have changed. So if you haven't looked at the housing market out there, drive around town. Go out, drive through Cimarron Creek. Come by, since Ogden Road will be opening Friday at 2:30. Come out and drive by the new complex that's there right at that bridge on Ogden Road. Go check it out, see how different it is around town. So thank you, Susan and Matt, appreciate it.